Now, before we start our lecture for today, what I wanted to show you, and perhaps some of you have not really logged in yet, has everybody gone on to GCE Learn for this module? You will see that there'll be things that will be added every single day or every now and then. If you haven't done so yet, it's good that you would probably navigate through this site so that you can understand some of the things better. So let me go on to the student preview. Right, so this is exactly what you see when you when you go onto the module. You will go onto this page. This is a welcome page which has some basic introductory information, and you got some module information. The module handbook is there with all the learning outcomes and everything else. What I did today was actually I actually copied and pasted all the different seminar groups, seminars that are running right now for this module, and there are about 40 of them. Okay. Now I've seen students' emails which says, I'm not able to attend my seminar today because of some genuine reason. Absolutely fine, no problem. My normal response to them is there are 39 other seminars happening in this week. So find out some and go and attend it. If you know where to find it, it's under module information on GCE Learn. Okay, all 40 of them are listed here. So you got the day, Friday, 3 to 4, right now happening. Mariana Pintado is a module seminar lecturer, and which room number it's happening in. Okay, so now you might say that I'm a media journalism student and all the seminars happen on a Friday. I'm not able to make it on a Friday. What can I do? Now, it's okay. We're following the same content in each one. The only difference that happens is for each of those degrees, people are taking different contexts and examples. So if you're actually going and attending, if you're a media and journalism student, but attending a lecture or a seminar conducted by somebody from international business, it's absolutely okay. It's not a problem. We follow the same content. Okay, the discussion might be differently contextualized, but that is not a problem really. The important thing is that you attend it. You let me know that you've attended somebody else's seminar. You inform the lecturer who is in the class at that point. They'll make a note of your name and they'll then coordinate with me to say, okay, this person has attended. So in case we get an email from SEATS to say, so and so student is absent this week in the seminars, we will know that you have attended, so we can amend it, right? So this is the place for you to go and find out when are the seminars running, who is running it, and which room number it's in. So find an alternative, but please let me know. Any announcements that we make are through this announcements page. For example, this morning I had put up this link for the survey. So in case you don't use a QR code or your phone doesn't have the capacity or capability to scan a QR code, or you find it simply just a little bit difficult to do that, you could have done the survey on your laptop as well. And some of the seminar tutors might be putting up information just in case they wanted to talk to you about something. And then the most important category is your learning activity on GCE Learn. And you got two most important ones underneath it. One is weeks/units, and the other one is reading material. Okay, I'll go to reading material first, and I'll be adding things here every week. Okay, right now what you see is a little ebook called Climate Crisis. It's written by Oxfam, and it's got 3 key questions. What is climate crisis? Why is it still happening? And what can you do about it? I've also created a glossary of terms. I believe I had saved it before, but let's see. Yep. Now this is like a mini dictionary, where you got lots of different terms there. So I have only selected, there were hundreds and hundreds of terms that I found originally. I went and selected some key ones that might be used more frequently in our discussions in the lecture and in the seminar, and you might find it more useful. So when we talk about climate change, when we talk about atmosphere, when you talk about afforestation, deforestation, alternative energy, greenhouse gases, what do they mean? Okay, so those meanings you'll find in this list. I'll also probably maybe put up the longer list, but most of the words that we really need are in this list. Now, there's one word that I want to highlight for you, and that's really important. Can somebody read that word for me, please? What's that word? Anyone? Anthropogenic, right? So that's a combination of two words. Anthro, that relates to human beings, and genic that relates to genesis or creation. So created by human beings. Most scientists think that climate change is a creation of human activity or it's a result of human activity. And that's really an important thing for us to understand. Made by people or resulting from human activities, usually used in the context of emissions that are produced as a result of human activities. Now, for your quiz number 1, your multiple choice questions test, that'll be one of the 10 questions. If you want to make a note, you can do that. What is anthropogenic climate change? And the answer would be anything to do with human activity or human-induced activity is what climate change is, right? And that's what anthropogenic climate change means. So you can look at these questions and these words, and you'll be able to find out the answers for these words, what they mean. What is carbon cycle? What's carbon dioxide? What's carbon dioxide equivalent? So what is the difference between CO2 and CO2e that normally you would see? Anybody can explain that? What do you think is the difference between carbon dioxide and CO2e? Any ideas? I'm sure a lot of people have the answer. What do you think it might be? What's the EQ or E stand for? Or equivalent? Anybody wants to take a guess? It's okay to be wrong, by the way. There's nothing wrong with being wrong. Hi. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much. Yeah, absolutely correct. So what he's saying is that there are a family of gases. When we talk about greenhouse gases, we're not just talking about carbon dioxide all the time. We're talking about a family of gases. CO2 is the most prevalent one, most abundant one, but there are lots of other ones as well. Like, for example, there is methane, CH4, there's nitrous oxide, there's water vapor, and there's chlorofluorocarbons. Chlorofluorocarbons are the ones that actually come out of your deodorants. That's how they actually compress them. Or the ones that actually comes out once you dispose of your refrigerator or air conditioning. And that causes a lot of problem. I think I mentioned about the ozone layer last week in the classroom itself as well. So it's a family of gases. But if you start talking about CH4 and NO2 and everything else, people might get confused. People who speak general languages like us might get confused about it. So what scientists did was that they actually said that we're going to convert everything in the terms of CO2. And so therefore, for example, methane is about 25 times or 29 times even sometimes say it's more as potent or as harmful as carbon dioxide. So when we're talking about methane released, we're talking about 25 CO2. When we're talking about some other gas, we're talking about 60 CO2. So all the scientists have basically done is they've taken all those gases and they always talk in terms of CO2 equivalent. And that's why you will always see that there is a CO2 equivalent that always comes an EQ sign or an E sign or something. It's a metric measure used to compare the emissions from various greenhouse gases based upon their global warming potential. Carbon dioxide equivalents are commonly expressed as million metric tons of CO2 equivalents, but don't worry about that detail. Okay, what's carbon footprint? We're going to talk about that today in the class. What is carbon capture? What is climate? What's climate change? What's COP? COP happened in Glasgow in 2021. What does that mean? What's coral bleaching? What's deforestation? What does it mean by ecosystem? I'm sure lots of these words are very common in your vocabulary already. There might be others that you might have heard for the first time, and that is absolutely okay. Just go through that. What is a fossil fuel? What's a geosphere? What's a glacier? What's global warming, for example? Okay, what is a greenhouse effect? What are the greenhouse gases? So all this information is out there for you, available under GC Learn. And then I put up some articles. Some of them I'm using today. For example, the role of business in society. There's a report by Harvard School of Government in the US. And they've actually spoken to some CEOs of some large organizations. So what are their views about climate change, etc.? So there's a report about that. There's also another report, an article called Purpose. What's the purpose of an organization? What's the role of an organization? Shifting from why to how. And then there was an article published in the Forbes magazine called The Power of Purpose and Why It Matters Now. And I have provided some useful web links. That's the UN web link about climate change. There's a Paris Agreement Paris Agreement is an extremely important one. Another for your quiz questions, and I'll tell you what the question is. What does Greenpeace think about climate solutions? And what does United Nations talk about when they talk about climate justice? Climate justice and carbon footprint are the two things we'll be covering later on in the lecture today, right? So all this information is available to you. The other one, which is week/units, which is where I'll put up all the information that we gather from our lectures and seminars. So for example, today's lectures, slides are already up there. This is not the right recording, as one of the students has pointed out, but I will be changing that and I'll put up the right recording for it from last week as well. Once this lecture is finished, once I've looked at the lecture slides and the recording, I'll put this up here as well for your consumption. If you look at seminars, again, the same thing. Every week you will see the seminar slides uploaded here, most likely before the seminar started. So this was uploaded over the weekend. So everybody who started their seminars on the Monday, they will be able to look at those slides as well. The third one is guest lectures. And we had last week Manon, and we recorded that. We didn't have enough time to listen to her in the afternoon, but I put the recording up from the morning, and that's really useful because you have the recording, you can listen to it in your own time, and we can cover other content in the classroom as well. So Manon, of course, was an ex-student here at GCU, and I taught her international business BA honors, and she graduated in 2021. And now she's working for this organization called BITC, Business in the Community. And over a span of 2.5 years, actually, she's gone from an administrator to a strategy advisor. So she's really doing very well. I'll see if I can bring her back again some of the time. So the recording of that is here. That was about half an hour of the seminar. And then I've added some additional useful reading, examples that I've taken in class. Okay. Now this was the report that Manon used. What do CEOs say about things? So one of the key things that actually for me stood out was that 57% of the CEOs think that there is a green skills gap. Okay, which means that there are not enough people, or there's not enough talent out there with sustainability skills. People don't know about climate change yet. Okay, and universities are not teaching them as well. So that was the reason why we incorporated this module in all the degrees to say GCU students should not be graduating without information or knowledge about sustainability or climate change at all. That should be unthinkable in the present day. In the 21st century, if you go out without the knowledge, even the terminology of climate change, then you got something missing. And so therefore, by the time you finish your degrees, your 4-year degrees, I'm hoping not only the 4-year degrees, even now after this module, I'm hoping that you'll have a much more enhanced and deeper knowledge about climate change than any other students have ever got. I used the example of Airbus last week, where they were fined €1 billion by the Serious Fraud Office for corruption charges. Rolls-Royce also, I found, they are one of the largest aircraft engine manufacturers, of course, apart from the luxury cars as well. And they actually settled a huge debt, a huge fine as well, £671 million. And of course, we mentioned about the Deepwater Horizon. Slight correction and apology. Did I mention that the fine was £500 billion or dollars? It was actually $5 billion. Okay, so that's a correction from my end. Okay, $5 billion. But of course, that was only the fine. They paid billions more in compensation to the local fishermen and the damage that they caused to the ecology. So that's a 12-minute documentary. If you ever wish to watch it, go and watch it. You'll find everything about that company and what they did and how they actually caused the damage to the organization as well. So that's really important to understand. Right, so that's your GCU Learn. And the final one that I would like you to look at is assignments and tests. There's a 16-minute video that I, of course, recorded in the class last week, and I've put up there, and you will be able to find more about it in this video. And if you want to read anything about the assignment, it's here. But do not think that if you have downloaded this once and that's it, you don't have to go back to that site again. Make sure that you keep coming back to the site again and again. And the reason for that is I'll be adding more material on that article. And I'll, of course, inform you and email you about whenever I do that. But it's important that you keep looking at it. For example, one of the things that the students have asked me and some of the tutors have asked me is, can I provide more information or a breakdown about how to write question 1 of your coursework, of your group coursework? I'll be providing more information. So what I'll do now is I'll provide you some pointers as to how to break that section down. So you can actually have 3 parts or 3 subsections to that question. 1, introduction, main body, and conclusion. And I'll tell you what to write in the introduction, what to write in the main body, what references to actually follow, and those sort of things. So you'll be able to find much more information in the next week about it. All the information about what are the dates of submission, all that is also there. So on GCE Learn, as weeks are progressing, you will see that more and more information is going to be appearing on these pages. So keep an eye. It's really important. I will be going on to GCE Learn to see if you're engaging with the material or not, and we have means to do that. And if I find that you haven't been on the site for a few days, then I'll be writing an email to you to say, is everything okay? Do you need any support? In addition to this, from next week onwards, hopefully, and I've mentioned this in my seminar class on the Monday, but I'll mention that again, I'm going to be holding assessment clinics. Okay, I'll be holding 2 or 3 assessment clinics at different times in the week. It's an optional online assessment clinic. I know that you will probably have lectures at different times and seminars at different times. So I'm hoping that there'll be at least one clinic. These are 1 hour long clinics, and they basically simply that it'll be a MS Teams link. I'll be present. Anybody who wants to come and chat with me about the assignment, if you have any questions, you can do so. If you want to book a one-to-one appointment, please feel free to do so as well. Send me an email and tell me that I'm free on this such and such date. Tuesday and Wednesday is better for me because I'm not teaching on that day. So simply just send me an email and say, can I have a chat with you about the assignment? What can I write in this? I'm not really sure. I'm happy to give you some time. We can have a chat and you can then start off. Okay. So there'll be a lot of support available to you in terms of what do you need to do to write your assignment. If you want to meet me as a group for coursework 1, because you'll be doing that as a team exercise, just give me a time and I'll send you a Teams link and we can then just chat online or a Zoom link or whatever, and we can chat online. So that's an offer available open to you if you want a one-to-one meeting. If you want to just come to the assessment clinic whenever I advertise, just come on to them and I'll be present and you can come and ask me those questions if you want. That should be absolutely okay. I will also try and share some samples of previous year students who've actually done the carbon literacy training, and that'll give you some better idea as to what is the difference between a high mark assignment and a low mark assignment, and that'll give you some more clarity about it. Right, any questions so far about the module site? Are you all comfortable? Have you been on the site yet? I'm hoping that most of you have at least once. But if not, make it a habit to go on the site at least once every week, So you're not missing out on any new information. Okay, thank you very much, everybody, for those who filled out the survey. I really appreciate it. It will enhance the quality of the training for next year, definitely. And we need to really understand where we stand in terms of what we deliver, what we teach, because the quality of the teaching depends on that. Okay, so thank you very much once again. I really appreciate what you're doing. So global challenges for business and society, week number 3. Let's start the lecture. I've got 3 parts to this lecture today. Number 1 is the role of business in society. We really need to understand what is it that we expect from these businesses. Why are they there for? What is the purpose of this business? Are they there to make profit or something else? And then we look at what does it mean by corporate social responsibility? Why do we expect organizations to become socially responsible? Why can't we just let them do what they do and what they've been doing for so many years? And finally, in the last 40 minutes or so, or an hour if possible, we'll talk about carbon literacy training, the next bit. Okay. And there are 2 things that we'll be covering in that. Number 1 would be carbon footprint. What does that mean? How to calculate it? And the second one would be climate justice within that itself. Right. So these are the things that I'm aiming to cover today. I'm hoping that we should have enough time. We'll also be able to take a 5-minute break in the middle as well. So what is the role of business in society? It's really important to understand this before we can start the expectations from what they should be doing. Now, these are comments or views provided to us by some of the largest CEOs of some of the largest organizations in the world. Okay. Leading an international business in the 21st century requires the delivery of goods and services, and through the profitable management of activities, the creation of wealth. So for many decades, business schools have been teaching this one thing. What is the purpose of the business? Profit maximization. What is the purpose of the business? Wealth maximization. For whom? Whose wealth is being maximized? Whose profit is being maximized? Anyone? What term comes to your mind? So who is making this profit? Whose pockets is this money going to? Sorry? So when we say an organization's objective is to maximize its profit, what are we really trying to say? For whom? For the shareholders, right? And the shareholders are people who actually own either full or part of the business. You could even be a shareholder by actually owning 1% or 2% of the business, or you could be a shareholder by owning 100% of the business. Okay. But any profit that the company makes goes to that, even if it's a public limited company, which means that they're actually trading their shares in the stock market. It's still a very small number of people who actually hold the shares of the company. It might be hundreds and thousands, but it's still a small minority. It is not really coming to the society or the environment. But why should it come to the society or the environment? It's really important that we think about leadership also requires responsibility towards people and societies in which the company operates and stewardship of the natural resources on which it relies. But should that be the case? Should we really be expecting organizations to have any impact on the society or the environment? Can we justify an argument against it? Can I not say that the organization is burning coal, but they paid money for that coal, haven't they? They bought that resource at the price of the market that the market charged them. So why should we then make the company responsible for damaging the environment? Anyone? They paid the money for the coal that they're burning. So that's fine. That should be fine, isn't it? What's wrong with that argument? What we might probably overlook and what we've been overlooking is the real cost of it. So the question is, have they actually paid the real cost of the damage that coal burning causes to the environment? And the answer probably might be that they've actually paid a very small price to buy that commodity, but they haven't really calculated or assessed the impact it will have on the environment over a long period of time. They might have thought about that I'm paying this person to stitch these clothes for me, but they haven't really followed the regulation about child labor is not allowed. Or they haven't really provided a good working condition. Yes, they've paid money to the person, but they've actually not estimated the cost that actually there is on the society and on the environment. And that expanded cost is what is causing all the problems right now that was never undertaken. So the role of business in society is a legitimate aspect of business leadership. It's not in the conflict with growth or profitability, but an integral part of management practice and sustainable business building. So nobody is saying that an organization must choose this or that. You're not saying that if you're choosing profit maximization, it's okay to carry on of ignoring or exploiting the society or the environment. And we're not really also saying at the same time that the organization must only think about the society and the environment and completely ignore the other part of the equation, which is profit maximization. So the important question for a business leader such as yourself in the future would be, what is the role of business in the society? That is a question that you'd be asking yourself in the 21st century. Is it one of the two? Is it profit maximization at all costs, which has been happening over the last few decades? Or that is optimal return for shareholders, which is a very small group of people, versus responsibility for social and environmental performance? Now, a similar word to shareholders is what? Sounds exactly the same, slightly different. Shareholders or what do you think? I'm sure you've heard of that word before. Shareholders or anyone? Starts with an S. I know you know it. You're smiling, so you know it. It starts with an S and it ends with holders. What is it? Stakeholders. Thank you very much. I'm sure you all have heard of this word before, stakeholders, right? Can anybody define stakeholders for me, please? So what is a stakeholder? So I'll define what shareholder is. A shareholder is a person or a group of people who own part or full of the business. But a stakeholder might be. So let's take an example. Heathrow is building a third runway. Have you heard of that news? It's out there, you can read it. Heathrow is building a third runway. Somebody objected to it. Who was that? Who do you think might object to a third runway in Heathrow? What kind of group of people would object to a runway building of a runway here at Heathrow? I can see the answers in your eyes. Just bring it out. What is it? Yes. Thank you very much. That's the definition of a stakeholder. Somebody who's interested in a business. I'll expand that definition a little bit more. Anyone who can influence a business or anyone who can be influenced by a business. Okay. Now you think about Heathrow runway number 3. What do you think? Who would be objecting to it, and why would they be objecting to it? So let's break it down. If Heathrow is building a third runway, what will be the impact? So what will be the positive? What will be the impact? Sorry? What will happen if there is more? It's one more runway. There are 2 already. What will happen if there's a third one? There'll be more planes. So that'll increase the capacity of the airport, first of all. More planes means what? More travel, and that means what? More profit for the company and more emissions, right? So who would object emissions? Environmental activists. So that was the first objection that came when Heathrow was starting to plan about, and that went on for decades, the court case and the legislation to be passed and all that, and Parliament passed it about 2 or 3 years ago, and they are building it. So environmental activists would be one of the stakeholders of Heathrow Airport runway number 3. Who else would be impacted? So now let's look at the definition that I gave you, or the definition that you gave us, which is somebody who's interested in the organization, somebody who would be influenced by the organization, or somebody who can influence the organization. So environmental activists definitely is one of them. Who else? Anybody live near an airport here? What happens when you live near an airport? Sorry? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Yes, that's correct. Against that runway. Yes, absolutely. So what he's saying is that people who are living in the vicinity of the airport will be subject to more noise pollution and planes flying over them, and of course more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, which could actually lead to more health problems for people. So people might not want to. So that group of people who live in the vicinity could be another group of stakeholders for the airport. So if you start thinking about and breaking it down, you will find out that there are many, many stakeholders: environmental activists, people who live in the vicinity of the airport, people who work at the airport, people who operate businesses at the airport, airlines who operate from the airport, employees of the airlines who actually operate from the airport, the passengers who actually use or potentially will be using the airport. So it's a whole lot of people who you got to start thinking about. So what we are suggesting then is that organizations must start thinking about stakeholders, because their organization, their business is going to be impacting those, and becomes a little bit more complex. So we're not really saying that choose one of the two. We're not saying that you think about profit maximization only and you never think about responsibility for society and the environment. You think about both. So then in that sense, the concept of complete leadership is what we're suggesting, an approach that combines optimum returns for shareholders with responsibility for social and environmental performance, or in other words, for stakeholders. So you're talking about shareholders as one of the stakeholders. And so therefore you're combining profitability with society and environmental responsibility. And that makes a complete leader. And that's what we hope that you will become in the future, that your decisions that you will be making will not simply be based on profit maximization. That will be one of the objectives, but at the same time, you'll be thinking about society and you'll be thinking about the impact of your organization and your decisions on the environment as well. Why is that important? Now, that's another quotation from a CEO of an organization who says, company leaders are not leaders of businesses, but leaders within society. Where are those people coming from? You all are going to work in an organization, most of you, or some of you might start your own organization, but most of us will go to work in an organization in the future. Who supplies those people to the organization? It's a society. So if the organization is actually impacting the society, who are they impacting? They're impacting us as individuals. So CEOs are not coming from anywhere else, from another planet. They're actually coming from within societies as well. We are part of a society, not apart from it. So it's really important to understand that. So the role of the business in society then is to innovate, to deliver products and services, to use resources efficiently so that value is created, and to conduct operations so that they are performed profitably and accepted by the society. At this point, I want to give you another example. Have you heard of the company called Body Shop? Yeah, what do they do? So what are the main products of Body Shop? You know, what is the product? Body Shop. Soaps, yes, and sorry, shampoos, soaps, cosmetics, other things. And the company really became successful. I think they started sometime in the late 70s, early 80s, and they became really successful because they differentiated themselves. Did I take this example last week? Might have, no? Okay, so what is the differentiating factor for a company like Body Shop? Why did they actually choose to do something that actually separated them from others? And what did they do? So they actually said that they wouldn't use so they actually wouldn't test on animals their products before they sell it. Sorry, there was another answer coming from here somewhere. You were saying something? The same thing. So they actually were against animal cruelty. And so therefore they created their products by saying that we'll create herbal products which we know will not be harmful to human skin. We don't need to test it on animals and we'll actually just launch it. And people accepted it. That really is important bit there, accepted by society. It's us who are accepting that product. If we don't accept it, it'll not be successful. Nobody would buy it, but we accepted it. So there is a big change that's happening in the society over the last 10, 15, 20 years or so. What is that change? Number one, that we're becoming more socially aware. We want to know where that product is sourced from, what kind of responsible decisions have been made behind it. And secondly, we are becoming more ethically conscious as a society. We really want to find out, and I want you to think about this even more now. Whatever product you buy, not just Body Shop or that we know about, whatever product you buy, think about not just about the company's features that they're telling us through the advertisements, but also think about what's behind the scenes. Okay, it's really important that we think about what they do. Are they an ethical company or are they an irresponsible organization? It's really important that we start thinking about that. So what makes an organization responsible? There are three important aspects. One is corporate social responsibility. The other one is sustainable management practices. And the third one is ethical management. And we'll cover all of those in our lectures in the coming weeks. So we're not going to be going into the detail of it, but we really want to understand that what makes an organization responsible. An organization who is responsible not only when they actually start thinking about profit maximization, but they become responsible when they start thinking about sustainability management, ethical management, being responsible towards the society and towards the environment. It's really, really important. But there is a problem. And that's from one of the articles that I've uploaded under the reading material. Only 7% of Fortune 500 CEOs believe that their companies should mainly focus on making profits and not be distracted by social goals, and with good reason. While shareholder capitalism has catalyzed enormous progress, it has also struggled to address deeply vexing issues like climate change and income inequality, or looking forward, the employment implications of artificial intelligence. In fact, in one of the weeks, I think in week 8, We're going to be talking about digital transformation and artificial intelligence, and what is the role of it, and what's the impact of that on our organizations and our society. So we'll be talking about that in the future as well. And there's also another report that I've actually put up, which is talking about purpose. What is the purpose of an organization? Okay, and how do you actually include purpose? Now, one of the important stakeholders, if you think about companies, is employees, ourselves, people who work for these companies. And there was a survey conducted by McKinsey to understand what do employees think about their own organizations. 82% of the people who actually took part, they said it is important to have a purpose in the company. 72% of them thought purpose should receive more weight than profit. 62% of them thought that their organizations have a purpose statement, and 42% thought that their organization's purpose statements drive impact. Now, I'll take an example here, and the example that we all are familiar with now, which is GCU. Okay, have you heard of this motto, the logo outside, which says, or perhaps at many different places, which says University for the Common Good? Have you heard that? What does that mean? So if you are a student here, or if you are working here, what would that statement mean? You enter the university, you see it outside, University for the Common Good. You see it in a lot of literature and publications that says University for the Common Good. What does that mean to you? When that word common good is used, that means that the university is not just catering for a set of people, which is the students and staff who work in the university, but anybody who might be influenced or impacted by the presence of that university in that place. And that is a big driving force for us. I also run another program called the Graduate Apprenticeship BA Honors in Business Management. And that is for people who didn't go to university after they finished school. They went into work straight away. Okay. And some people went into work and they worked for 5 years, some worked for 10 years, some 15, 20, even 30 years old, 30 years of experience. And they now found that they want to grow more in their organizations. They are in a better, different situation as compared to when they were 18 or 19, and they want to now go to university. That'll be quite a challenging thing because most people will say either you do go part-time or you leave your job and come. But the graduate apprenticeship program allows them to keep their jobs full-time, and we've designed the program in such a way that we allow them to actually take part. What that means is that access to higher education must not be denied to anybody at any age in their lives. And that is a really important driving force for me. So common good means widening participation for me, that I am running a program, or we've designed a program that actually allows people at any age of their lives to keep their full-time jobs and still be able to come and do a degree. Okay, so that's really an important driving force. So that's what University of Common Good means for me. It might mean different things to different staff members. What is important is that they recognize that the organization has purpose, because that purpose motivates people. It definitely motivates me every single day of my work that I've been here with GCU. So purpose defines our core reason for being, and that's individual and organizations, and the positive impact we have on the world. It shapes our strategy, inspires our people, engages our customers and community, steers choices at moments of truth, and is fully embedded in our culture. Living purpose authentically should feel uncomfortable and new. It may mean surfacing fresh questions in meetings, engaging in difficult conversations about some of our businesses, and reevaluating our partners based on a clear-eyed view of their practices. Now, again, coming back to the example of GCU. Recently, we've started to have those conversations, those difficult conversations, and reevaluating what we do. And I'll give you two examples. Number one, GCU, being a large organization, has a huge list of suppliers we buy from, simple things like chairs and tables and computers. And is there a mic down there somewhere which is making some noise? I don't know, because it's not coming from my mic, it's coming from somewhere else, and I don't see that there's a mic here, so it might be one mic which is probably fallen down somewhere if the lecturer was teaching before. But anyway, so GCU has a huge list of employers or suppliers that we buy from. Okay, now what we've done over the past few years is that we've started to say to our suppliers that if you want to be a supplier for GCU, you've got to be following ethical principles and sustainable principles. If you're not, which means that then we are not going to be buying from you. What that means is that it makes the entire supply chain ethical. Being a large organization, people want to be associated with the large organization and keep supplying to us. So what they will then do is saying, okay, GCU wants to be an ethical buyer, and so therefore we will actually change our supply chain and we'll make it more ethical. And they might do the same for their other suppliers as well. And so therefore the entire network becomes, but that will not just happen just automatically. It will require to engage in difficult conversations about some of our businesses. The second example I can give you is about transportation policy. We started to think about this some years ago. And what they've done now is staff members who are traveling for conferences or business related travel, if they are traveling to a place which can be reached by train within 6 hours, they must take the train. They will not fly anymore. What that means is the collective carbon emissions of staff members or of GCU in general reduces. And that's good for the environment. But these conversations have to happen. They can't simply just not happen and automatically you'll have a policy there. That will not happen. It's really important that we start thinking about policies. And many organizations have done that. So the purpose of a company leads to strategic choices and builds on cultural strengths to drive impact. What we're trying to say is that the strategy of the company, the culture of the organization, and the purpose of the organization must be in alignment to be able to become more successful and be able to impact the society and the environment more positively. So what is the purpose of a company and how does it impact their capacity to make a distinctive contribution to the world? Who benefits from their success and what are the responsibilities to stakeholders, which includes shareholders, workforce, suppliers, ecosystem participants, communities, and the environment in which they operate. So placing purpose at the core is really important, and we're really breaking down this particular diagram. What's needed is relatively clear. It's deep reflection by organizations on an organization's corporate identity, what they really stand for, which may well lead to material changes in their strategy and even their governance, such as their status as a public company, a private company, or a charity or social enterprise. And it's really important then they start combining purpose and strategy together and start looking at who owns the company, who are their stakeholders, what's our social responsibility, what's our governance structure, for example, the executive board, etc., and that sort of thing. It's really important that you start thinking about those important aspects. So the purpose must become a key component of organizational strategy, and that's really important. And you might have heard about these statements before. For example, the University for the Common Good is the vision statement, the mission, the values, etc. So a clear purpose inspires, attracts, motivates. Purpose is the company's moral response to its broadly defined responsibilities, not an amoral plan for exploiting commercial opportunity. So we go back to the first thing that we mentioned. It's not a choice between either you profit maximize or you choose between being responsible towards society and environment. You must do both, and that's really important. This was one of the first definitions of sustainability that was given in 1987. The Brundtland Commission in 1987 said, in our common future, sustainable development is a kind of development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, there's a slight flaw in that. Not that the definition is wrong, but this was given in 1987. The rate of climate change over the last 30 years or so has been quite great. And so therefore, that definition needs a slight change. And that would be, I believe, and that's my opinion, the development that meets the needs of the present generation without compromising the ability of present generations at the same time. What we know for sure is that the impact of climate change, what we used to think before, is that what we are doing now will not impact us so much, but it'll impact the future generations more than us. But that's not true anymore. We know that the impact of climate change today is impacting the generation of today. Okay, so whatever we're doing has a shorter term impact there. It's not going to wait for 20 years. Sorry, it's not going to wait for 20 years before we can do that. So what do organizations start to do now, start to think about, is embedding sustainability, become a responsible business, After this, we'll take a short break, but just hold on for a moment. There are three things here, and there's quiz question number 2 coming up for you. There are three things that we're talking about. Economic interests that organizations must but understand their economic impact on the localities where it does business, such as job creation, wages, and public works. Anybody from Uddingston here? Have you heard of that town? Uddingston? There's a factory called Tunnux. Have you heard of this? Tunnux? The chocolate makers, I think. Now, Uddingston and Tunnux were kind of known for each other. You know, Tunnux or Uddingston and Tunnux, everybody would know that the factory is there. Now, the owners of that business have been quite generous in terms of the way they embedded. Many people, not anymore probably now, but many people in Uddingston used to work or still work perhaps in the Tunnux factory. Okay, it's very much engaged in the society over there. Tunnux does a lot of charitable activities there, a lot of sports clubs. I know the cricket club over there in Uddingston, the hockey and the football club, they're all sponsored by them. They have a generous amount. What are they doing? They're actually supporting the society in which they operate. Why? Because they have recognized, they have realized that the people who are working for us are coming from where? They're coming from that society. And so therefore, it's only right for us to be responsible and show our gratitude by actually supporting the society even more. And so therefore, there is a really good symbiotic relationship between the company and the town. It's very well respected. So economic interests are important, and social interests are also important, which refer to how the firm performs relative to social justice, such as avoiding the use of child labor, sweatshops, and providing employee benefits. And environmental interests refer to the extent of the firm's impact on and harm to the natural environment. These three interests are collectively known as, we've talked about this before, the 3 Ps. Did I mention that last week? People, profit, and planet. It's on the board. Okay. In other words, it's also called the triple bottom line. The financial impact of an organization's operations, the social impact of an organization's operations, and the environmental impact of an organization's operations. Think about this, the triple bottom line, we'll talk about this. The quiz question that I'm talking about is, what does ESG stand for? Anyone? Have you heard of that term before, ESG? So E and S, perhaps you would know. What is environmental governance? Thank you very much. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. Environment, social, and governance. So one of the quiz questions in your first quiz might be, what does ESG stand for? So what are the two questions I've told you now already? Question number 1 was, did you make a note of it? Hi. That word that starts with an A, an odd sounding word that we've never heard before. What is that word? Anthro. Remember that from the dictionary? That wasn't a long while ago. Anthropogenic, thank you, yes. So anthropogenic climate change, which is climate change caused by human activity. Okay, that was question number 1. Question number 2 was what? What does ESG stand for? So there'll be 4 options. One of the options will be environmental, social, and governance, and other options will be the wrong options, obviously. So don't choose any one of those. Choose the one which is the right one. And there's another third question coming in the second part of our thing today. So we will be talking about, in the coming weeks, we will be talking about corporate social responsibility, what that is, and how does it impact the triple bottom line, the environmental, economic, and social. Okay, and we'll also talk about what can businesses do to mitigate or adapt to the risks posed by global challenges, as we've started to discuss in the last week itself.